Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Walton here with you once again, bringing you yet another video of the On Approach series with Captain Walton. Today we're going to be reviewing just a little bit and mostly flying the Beechcraft 18, a very popular aircraft from the mid-1950s to the end of the 1960s. A twin prop aircraft, held about 12 passengers, very popular in its time, and actually an aircraft in which I had the pleasure of flying real world here in 2015, and I had an absolute blast flying it. It was very responsive, very fun, just an all-around good aircraft, real world. Now we're going to see just how well Just Flight has managed to recreate this, or excuse me, First Class Simulations is the ones who designed the aircraft, but it's sold by Just Flight. I picked this aircraft up here recently. It says $30.65 USD on their website. I had some additional just reward points on Just Flight, so I picked it up for actually less than that. I've actually purchased several Beechcraft 18s for FSX, and I have been disappointed in all of them but this one. I was actually rather pleasantly surprised with this one, and you'll see why once we get into flight. I'll talk about it a little bit. We're going to be using FS Passengers today, and we're just going to be doing an air tour in it around Las Vegas. We're going to take off from McCarran International Airport. We're going to fly out, do a tour of the Hoover Dam, Lake Mead, surrounding areas, North Las Vegas, and then a low pass of the Las Vegas Strip, and then we'll come back into McCarran. So just sit back, enjoy the time, and let's just see what the aircraft does. So if you're interested in picking up this aircraft, I'll put a link in the video description. My personal suggestion, $30. If you're a fan of the Beechcraft 18, I'd go ahead and pick it up, but I still think $30 is a little steep for this. I would have rather have seen it around the $19.95 price tag. It'd be well worth 20 bucks, but 30, I'm a little disappointed, and I'll explain why for $30 once we get into cruise, and I'll explain a little bit more about the product itself. So let's go ahead and close this video, and you will see we are loaded up in Las Vegas, in which the Super 18 sitting here with the beautiful view of Mandalay Bay and the surrounding strips and the MGM Grand signs there in the background. And you can see part of the New York casino back there, which I have been to most of those casinos real world, and they are a lot of fun. As you can see, when we first load into the aircraft, the exterior model is fantastic. It's spectacular, especially for an aircraft that was originally, for its time, produced for FS9. So to have it look that well in X was pretty surprising to me. It is a tail dragger aircraft. I don't have much experience on tail dragger aircraft, either real world or virtual, but like I said, flying at real world in 2015 was a blast. So hopefully it'll be almost as much fun as it was real world, but obviously it won't be as fun, but we'll give it our best shot. So let's go ahead and board the aircraft, and I will give you my first indications of what I feel of it. Okay, inside the aircraft here, basic gauges. It's pretty simple. When I loaded it up, I didn't have to accept any gauge files or anything like that. That tells me it goes off mostly default gauges. It's not too bad. It's alright, but the first thing you'll notice out of all the Super 18s that have been produced for FSX is the gauges. They're clear, more crisp, they seem more fluid for an aircraft of this age. The modern day GPS was not in the real aircraft that I flew, so the Garmin wasn't in there. So if that was left out with maybe a little more steam gauges over there, that would have been beautiful. But hey, it still works because I still enjoy having the GPS in here when I'm doing flights to and from airports. I've already done an actual flight in it earlier today, into Tyler Pounds Regional Airport in Texas, in East Texas, and I had a lot of fun with it. So, the one thing I did notice, and we'll get more into it in flight, is the fuel consumption is a lot. I used 1/4 of a tank of fuel going roughly 50 miles. So that was rather surprising to me. I might have to edit the aircraft config file to a little bit more realistic fuel consumption. So as we look around, the yoke is very fluid, very smooth, as you would expect. And that's about the real motion of the real thing. It does not give full turn motion that the real thing did, but it gets close enough. Okay, so I'm moving forward here to try to get them out of the way. You can see our propeller pitch there, our throttles here, feathers here, mixture here, fuel controls, left wing, right wing, trim. So it's got your basic functionalities, not too bad. And then of course the luxury passenger cabin, which apparently this model does not have. Well, that's interesting. The one I flew earlier had one. Apparently not this one. No biggie. We're not going to be back there anyways. So it is hard to see over the dash, so what I have to do is I have to use Easy Dock to kind of move myself up a little bit when taxiing, so it's easier to see instead of trying to stick my head out the side window. That cannot be too good. So what we're going to do here is we're going to close the doors. As you can hear them closing back there. Sounds good to me. The hydraulics there. I'm going to now start FS Passengers. Says we're going to load 7 passengers, which the aircraft can hold 12, so that's understandable. I don't have the appropriate file for an Super 18, so I do need to get one. Fuel, I am not going to load. Well, I guess we can go ahead and keep that much. It's alright. It's not going to hurt us any. We're going to do a flight tour. And we'll load immediately. Looks like we got a bunch of retirees on board. I don't expect any flight attendants on this flight, so go ahead and put the fasten seatbelt sign on. Alright, let's move the mixture up here a little bit, and I'm going to use my switch panel to start the aircraft. It's interesting that it starts both engines at the same time. It does have a beautiful sound package to it. I do enjoy the sound package on it. Okay, I'll do first notch of flaps for departure. Okay. I am going to position myself up a little bit so we can taxi a little bit here. As I said before, just a beautiful aircraft. It was really a blast to fly real world. So, and it seemed to fly pretty decently in the sim. But we'll take off here and you can form your own opinions and I'll give you mine. Matter of fact, I have 3 videos on my YouTube channel here of me flying the Super 18. You can go through my video history. And the tail number of the aircraft was November 7 Bravo Sierra. November 7 Bravo Sierra in 7BS, and it was actually flew it at the Rusk County Air Show in June of 2015. So. Actually, you know what? I want to go off of 7s because we're going to be flying out towards the Hoover Dam, and that'll give us a direct shot for the Hoover Dam. Up here and I'll get down to the realistic view, which actually this was about the realistic view here. I was able to actually see over the dash in it. Okay, we're not going to use full power. In this one you have to watch the manifold pressure, so we want about 40 manifold pressure, so that's what we're going to give it here. We're going to pull back on the yoke to keep the tail down. There's 80 knots to pull up. She's not wanting to go, that's for sure. There she goes. Gear up.
Gear up.
Just wanted to be a little squirrely. There we go. Flaps up. Get us down to a more realistic view there. Here we are. So that way you can see out the windows. She hand flies beautifully for an older aircraft. Just have to adjust the trim a little bit. Alright, so let's go up to about, let's say 5,000 feet for now. We'll climb about 1,000 feet per minute, and then on our heading, let's do about 100 degrees even on the heading. The autopilot works very well in this aircraft, which I was quite surprised with. I'll give us just a little bit more power. As I was saying at the beginning of this video, I have purchased all the Payware Beechcraft 18s that there are. I mean, I wanted a Payware Beech 18 because they're a blast to fly. But all the Payware I have purchased, no offense to the developers, but they're junk. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to be sued for that, the way people nowadays are sue happy. But one of them in particular, that has the number 1 in their name, had a somewhat decent rendition of the Super 18. The only problem I had with it was whenever you tried to taxi on the ground, you could turn the tail wheel lock on or off. You'd do whatever you want. It would not turn. I mean, you could not taxi that plane. And I felt ripped. Yeah, you only pay a couple of dollars for it. They only request a donation. They don't actually charge a set price. I think they request a $3 donation or something like that to download their plane, which I did, and that was no problem. I had no problem with that. But you could not taxi the aircraft, and that was the problem I had with it. So it ended up being junk to me. The other one, I can't think of the name of it, but it was another Payware one. It came in a package. It was from a very popular developer, and they're currently in the process of making a plane that it seems like everybody is wanting to hurry up and release, but they have delayed it so much that it's becoming very annoying. And I'm sure if you're into regional jets, you're going to know the developer I'm talking about. They released one in a package, in like a tour package where you fly to beaches and things like that, and that one to me was just horrible. I did not like it at all either. This one, on the other hand, I found to be, out of all of them, the best and very enjoyable. I was very pleased with it so far. The flight dynamics, as you can see, are terrific. I like the feel of it. I like the looks of it. It's by far the best looking one out of all of them. If you look down at the fuel gauges down there just above the mixture levers, you're going to notice what I was talking about the fuel levels. It was full when we departed Vegas, and as you can see, it's already moved that much. So that is something I'm going to have to edit within the actual config, because I think that is a little ridiculous. Because the real thing did not suck that much fuel down. But other than that, I mean, that's nothing. I ain't complaining about that. That can be fixed in the config, and anybody can fix the fuel flow in a config if you have even the slightest knowledge of aircraft config files. As you can see, beautiful scenery, just beautiful. We're doing an air tour for FS passengers. Things seem to be going great. We're in cruise at 5,000 feet. We'll easily pass these hills over here, so that's not a big deal there to worry about. I'm going to come back on the power a little bit and try to keep us about 140 knots. When I cruise from airport to airport, if I'm doing actual cargo run for like Air Hauler 2, by the way, this aircraft is perfect for Air Hauler 2. If you're looking for a good starter cargo plane, this would be perfect. Especially if you're doing runs like up in Alaska and things like that, or in the outback down in Australia and whatnot. Perfect aircraft for it. I haven't actually used it in Air Hauler yet, but that is my primary reason for flying this aircraft more, is to be using it for a cargo plane in Air Hauler 2. And even a passenger plane for, you know, down in Australia. If you have Orbix Australia package, this plane, Air Hauler 2 and Orbix Australia, you're set. So we are doing pretty good here. We're held at 5,000 feet. Beautiful day for flying here in Las Vegas. As you can see, not a cloud in the sky. Absolutely beautiful. The other cool thing about this aircraft is the trim indication right here. You can view your trim indication right there, and I love that. See, if we pitch it down a little bit, you're going to see it move down, but it's going to come right back up because it's on autopilot. But that is something I really, really like. Okay, out to our left here, Lake Mead. Been there real world. It's been quite a few years. I think last time I was down there was 2004, 2005, when I was actually at the lake in the water. But it was still a very fun lake. I was actually down there with a, at the time I was dating, and I was down there with a young lady that I really, really liked. And we went to Lake Mead together, and that was a fun day. And no, nothing inappropriate happened for you out there, twisted mind people. We just went to the lake, had fun, went home. Alright, coming up on the Hoover Dam here on our left. As you can see out there, about 11 o'clock, 10:30. So what I'm going to do is try to turn us directly over the Hoover Dam so you can get a good view of it. Then once I turn us over the Hoover Dam, I'm going to actually start some outside views so you can see outside in flight. Alright, there is the Hoover Dam down there. Turned a little too late. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go outside. And listen to those sounds outside. Oh my gosh. There's the Hoover Dam for you. And I've actually listened to the real Super 18 the day before, or the day that I actually flew the aircraft. I was at the airport when the aircraft was doing some flying, and to listen to it, that sounds so accurate. It's just beautiful, and inside sounds very accurate also. I mean, I had a headset on, it was muffled a little bit so it was hard to hear, but it does sound extremely similar. Alright, we've got the manifold pressure down here to about 34. We have a minimum of 15 minutes that you have to do air tours for us as passengers. So by the time we get back to the airport, I think we'll have enough footage or enough time in the air to consider it a tour. And we can actually follow the lake out that way a little bit if you want to. I better not, because I'd like to get this video edited and uploaded today before I go out of the house for the weekend. So okay, so I'm going to turn to a heading of about 300 here. It's some muddy looking water though, isn't it? Start heading us back for the strip, because we're going to do a little flyby of the strip before landing on the 7s. Going give us a little bit more power here to speed us up to about 180 knots. We'll listen to those engines kick in and start working. I have not done an altitude test in the Super 18, so I don't know the maximum altitude I can get her up to yet. I haven't read the manual either, so I haven't really tested it, but I am going to test it out and see how high I can get her and successfully cruise. Alright, there's 180 knots. Let's go ahead and back down a little bit on the manifold. Hold right about there. That'll get us to the strip. We're holding good 180 knots there. And it's a very frame rate smooth aircraft. As you can see, I've got all my settings maxed out scenery wise to as max as I can get them, except for the water. To me, water is just, you don't need it, and it's just, it'll bog your frames every now and then. Not always, but every now and then. So to me, I'd turn off my water. I don't need it. The water looks fine in my opinion. So as you can see, my target frames up there are 60, and I'm bouncing between 59.7 and 60. So the frames are extremely smooth, both inside and out, which is to be expected from an aircraft that was originally made for FS9 and X. So, alright, we're going to fly just to the right of the stratosphere, and then we're going to take a left-hand turn and do about a 1,000 foot flyby of the strip. Then we're going to make a right-hand turn followed by an immediate 180 and back in for the 7s. So, and we will hand fly. After our low flyby, we will hand fly the turns and final approach into Las Vegas. Okay, I'm going to take us down now to about 4,000, 3,500. Alright, here we go. So I got to come back on the power a little bit so she doesn't overspeed. While we're descending and coming into the strip, I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of this aircraft. The pros, flight dynamics. That's one major pro. The sound package is very, very close to the real thing. I like it. A lot of times I buy aircraft and I have to turn around and immediately get payware sound packages, or even some freewares are good for the aircraft, just because some of the sound packages that come with these aircraft are horrible nowadays. I don't know who they hire for sound package developers for these payware products, but some of them are horrible. One in particular, and I probably will get a lot of grief over this. I'm not going to name the name, but their company has 4 letters in it, and it seems like their sound packages are just horrible, in my opinion. But usually I turn to TSS or Synchrosoft, or Blue Star Sky is another very good sound developer. I purchased both of their A320, the CFM and the IAE sound packages because they were just phenomenal. I wish those guys would do other aircraft, to be honest, because they just did a terrific job. So this is one aircraft you don't have to turn around and try to find a sound package for, because it is very well done. The overall cockpit look has a few things. It does lack a little bit to be desired, but overall it is very good, so I put it in a pro section. The autopilot does very well for what seems to be just a default autopilot. Does very well, holds very well, stays on course, and even the navigation and the climbing and descending all seems to be very well. The textures, both inside and outside, those are pros. They seem to be very well done, very good. I like it. And the ability to taxi, to use the rudder pedals to taxi on the ground, that was a big plus for me. I really have to say that is a definite pro, because it seems like I was talking about earlier, that one that I purchased, you couldn't even taxi the thing on the ground. Well, bottom line, it was just terrible. The cons to this aircraft, unfortunately, one of them is the night lighting in the aircraft. It does lack a lot to be desired. So, unfortunately, it's not an aircraft I think I'll be flying a whole lot at night. But it does make up for it during the day, that's for sure. And then, of course, the lack of gauges on the right side. The real aircraft had quite a few gauges on the right side, just as it does on the left. And I feel that they filled it up too much with the autopilot stuff and the default GPS in the center. That's another con, at least to me. But overall, I think the pros outweigh the cons in this aircraft. So if you are looking for the Beechcraft 18, this is probably going to be your best way to go. I didn't even know that this company made a Beechcraft 18 until I accidentally came across it when I was browsing the internet on Just Flight looking for something to add to my collection. So the minute I seen it and read the reviews on it, hey, I had to pick it up, and to be honest, I'm glad I did. Alright, I'm going to slow us up to about 140 knots now, because we are passing the stratosphere. So what I'm going to do, we're just about 1,000 feet above the ground, so what I'm going to do is turn us towards the strip so we can get a somewhat decent view of the strip. There we go. The one thing I'm not proficient in, and it's just because of my lack of hours in tail draggers, is landing in these things. I seem to always bounce it at least once or twice, but we'll see how I do on this one. I'm definitely going to be logging quite a few hours in this aircraft, so getting the experience on the tail dragger should not be an issue. Slow us up just a little bit here. Get an outside shot, what do you say? There's some good views of the Las Vegas Strip for you. I don't know why the sound's waking out on me there. There's the Luxor, Mandalay Bay. Alright, that'll do it for the strip. So I'm going to go ahead and take the autopilot off now. You notice there is no sound for the autopilot when you disconnect. That is kind of dangerous, considering if you don't hear it come off by accident in severe turbulence, or you accidentally hit the button. I've been known to do that sometimes myself, and you just don't realize it. So that could be disastrous. So we're going to make a right-hand turn here. I am hand flying at this point. We did turn off the autopilot, so. The other thing I noticed in this aircraft is the trim wheel. It's normally down here to the right of the captain's seat. So you just bring your hand down and turn it, but for some reason it was not modeled in this, which is not a big deal to me. I mean, that's not a deal breaker. There are some folks out there, no offense to them, but I mean, if the slightest little thing is missing from the real thing to the payware version, they'll say it sucks. They'll say it's horrible, and that's just not fair to the developers. I mean, if you want something that realistic, go to flight school, get your license, and go fly the plane. But don't complain just because one little thing's missing, or say the plane stinks because one little thing's missing. Remember, passenger comfort, that's number one. We're turning here, trying our best to maintain altitude while we're turning, so that way is not to make the passengers too uncomfortable. Really, you think about it, commercial flying, you're just an airborne bus driver. And I heard someone say that one time, and that stuck with me ever since. Because if you think about it, that's really just what you are. You're an airborne bus driver. Your goal is to get people from A to B safely and comfortably. So, instead of coming in on the 7s, let's go ahead and come in on the 1s. Come in on one left there. Alright, gear down.
Gear down.
If we go back and look at that trim gauge, you'll see now that I'm trimming the aircraft how it's moving around. Bring out the flaps a little bit more. At least give the passengers a nice view of the strip as we land. Alright, full flaps are set, gear is down, we are cleared to land. Let's try to drain a little altitude there. There we go. That wasn't too shabby. Just keep the nose from falling too fast. windows up so we can, or bring the view up here a little bit so we can taxi on in. Alright. Overall, not a bad little trip. I think the passengers are happy. Made a little money for the air tour company. IFS Passengers Company, Walton Air Charters. Nickname Whack. Yeah, this aircraft taxis beautifully compared to any of the Beechcraft 18s I've bought, paid for, and flown. Pull up too close because I don't want to crash into any buildings. Have an FS Passengers crash. Alright. And there we go. We have shut down the aircraft. Go ahead and open the doors, let the passengers exit. Turn the seatbelt sign off, and we'll go ahead and let them exit the aircraft. Give us about 30 seconds before they're off board the aircraft. Now if you look down at the fuel gauges there, look how much fuel we've used just for that trip. So that we've used about a little bit more than 1/8 of a tank. That's still a lot for just a flight around Las Vegas. So anyways folks, that's been my comments and review of the Just Flight Discover America, or Discover the USA package, $30.65 USD. My personal feelings, that price is a little high for those that are maybe not really a fan of the Super 18. If you're still a fan, I still think it's a little too high, but if you're looking for a Super 18 that is decent to fly and you could really have some fun with, I would not have any reserves about picking it up. So definitely pick it up if you're wanting something like this. Like I said, there are pros, there are cons, but the pros definitely outweigh the cons. Be sure to give me some likes, subscribe, please be sure to comment, and I will see you next time. This is Captain Walton. Be safe, God bless you. We'll see you next time.